Revealed. Incredible 30-year-old family secret transformed into heartwarming tale of redemption. Sarah had always felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. At 32, she juggled her double shifts as a waitress with being a single mother to Lily, her spirited 7-year-old daughter. In their modest home on the outskirts of a struggling Midwestern town, every day was a battle against the weight of generational hardship. Raised by her formidable grandmother, Sarah carried the burden of unanswered questions about her father, the man who disappeared before she was even a whisper in her mother's heart. But then a letter arrived, and her world flipped upside down. The envelope, yellowed with age and slightly torn, hinted at secrets wrapped in pain. With trembling hands, Sarah opened it. Inside was news that shattered her already fragile routine. Her father was gone. A war veteran. He had taken his final breath, leaving behind not just sorrow, but journals filled with thoughts and struggles. Each page was a glimpse into the battles he fought, both on foreign soil and within his own heart. Sarah's chest tightened, tears pooling in her eyes as she read his words. They spoke of dreams unrealized, of love he sought but never found, and the heavy weight of duty. The story behind each sentence evoked pain and empathy that pulled at her heartstrings. These were his confessions, the fears and hopes draped in vulnerability. She was drawn in, learning about a man shaped by war, yet yearning for connection. These weren't merely pages. They were a lifeline to a father she never knew. As she sat on her worn couch, passages from the journals blurred between past and present, sparking painful memories of her grandmother's tough love. While her grandmother meant to guide her, Sarah often felt suffocated by age-old expectations. They clashed over choices, each fight revealing fragments of their complex love. But now, those elements of misunderstanding pushed Sarah to reconsider their bond. Could she find forgiveness, or would old wounds keep reopening? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The event loomed on the horizon, one she wanted to organize to honor her father and shed light on the struggles of families like hers. It was a community gathering, aimed at bridging divides and uniting people through the stories of veterans. However, skepticism seeped through the town like a thick fog. Doubts about her family's legacy shook her confidence. But the memories of her father fueled her fire, pushing her to represent him and the struggles they shared. The morning of the event rose, filled with anxious anticipation. Adrenaline rushed through her veins as she set up chairs and decorated tables with flowers Lily had picked. An unsteady hope blossomed in her heart. What if this was her moment, not just to honor her father, but to reshape her own destiny? Just as she felt the thrill of possibility, a startling revelation about her father's legacy hit her, one that left her reeling, questioning everything she understood about loyalty and self-worth. Would she rise to seize this moment, or would the shadows of her past pull her back into darkness? The early morning sun poured through the small kitchen window, casting gentle rays onto the worn dinette set where Sarah sipped her coffee. It was quiet, the kind of stillness that felt heavy with anticipation. Lily was still in her room, likely lost in dreams about princesses and adventures. Sarah's eyes wandered to the stack of journals on the table. Every page contained her father's voice, and she could almost hear him whisper his thoughts through the ink. As she prepared for the event, the weight of her father's absence wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. She touched the flower that Lily had picked, its bright yellow petals bringing a pop of cheer amidst her swirling thoughts. This gathering meant everything, not just for her father, but for every story that remained untold in their town. In that moment, she made a silent vow to honor his memory, no matter the odds. With each table she set up, whispers of doubt crept in. Would the community show? Would they care? Her heart pounded as memories of her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. You can't fight for others if you don't first fight for yourself. What if this effort fell flat? What if they only saw her as the girl with the missing father? As people trickled into the park, Sarah's anxiety flared. She glanced at Lily, who was chatting animatedly with a few kids nearby, their laughter creating a bubble of normalcy that stole some of her worry. But still, as familiar faces floated through the gates, the knots tightened in her stomach. Old friends, neighbors, and even the few who had turned their backs on her family came to see what this was all about. "Look, it's Sarah," someone called out, their tone feigning enthusiasm. That familiar edge of gossip pierced through the air, and Sarah winced. Each word hung like a chain, pulling at her confidence. "Let's hope she doesn't embarrass herself," another voice called, laughter bubbling in the background. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped forward and tapped on the microphone. The gathering fell silent, all eyes on her. Heart racing, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching for failure. "I know many of you may have doubts about what this is," she began, but then paused as she caught Lily's eye. Her daughter smiled brightly up at her, an innocent beacon of support in the crowd. "But I'm here to share my father's story. The story of a man who believed in love, duty, and the battles we fight both outside and within ourselves." She continued, her voice growing stronger, fueled by the knowledge of what her father faced, the weight of his struggles a shared burden now. "In seeking a better future, we should lift each other up, not tear each other down." As she spoke her heart, the community began to stir. Faces softened, and something shifted in the air. This wasn't just about her father, it was about them, too. Sarah saw lingering glimpses of doubt transform into something warmer curiosity, maybe even understanding. But just as she started to feel a connection grow, her grandmother appeared at the edge of the crowd. Sarah's breath caught. The woman who had raised her was a fixture of strength, always letting her know when she disappointed or shamed the family. Would she be here glaring in disapproval, or could this be a moment of reconciliation? Sarah's heart raced again, but the thrill was more demanding this time. Would she summon the courage to bridge years of silence with her grandmother? Or would her fears keep them apart, even now? What would she say that could change everything? Sarah's pulse quickened as she tried to steady her breathing. The microphone felt heavier than before, an anchor weighing down her resolve. Momentarily, she lost her words. Her gaze locked on her grandmother standing at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed tightly. The expressions of those around her blurred together, oblivious to the storm brewing within. "Lily," Sarah whispered, her voice barely a breath. Her daughter's laughter faded as she approached, an oasis of innocence amidst the complexity. "Can you stay with me for a bit?" "Of course, Mommy," Lily chirped, taking Sarah's hand confidently, as if she held the weight of the moment. That small gesture grounded Sarah, fortifying her spirit. With her daughter firmly by her side, Sarah turned back to the crowd, determined to find her voice again. "Family at isn't just a word," she started again, her heart swelling. "It's a tapestry woven with threads of love, pain, forgiveness, and resilience." Facing her grandmother, who still wore a stern expression, Sarah felt the tether of history tighten. "I know I haven't done everything right, but maybe today is a chance for us all to heal." She caught the eyes of a few neighbors, their brows furrowed with curiosity mixed with admiration. Encouraged, she continued, "My father believed stories mattered. Each one holds a piece of who we are. And what better way to honor him than by sharing our stories together?" As she glanced at Lily, the little girl's eyes sparkled with eagerness. Behind that innocence lay an understanding of their family's collective quiet ache, unspoken but palpable, the kind of hurt that comes when love falters, yet fights to shine brighter. "Today's gathering is just the beginning," Sarah declared, warming to her theme. "It's about the past, yes, but it's about the future too. A future where we can embrace one another instead of staying in the shadows of our grief." An unexpected wave of emotion washed over her, forcing her voice to catch. "What if we could turn our shared losses into something beautiful? What if we can finally bring our whispers into the light?" A soft murmur spread through the crowd as they began to nod, some gathering closer, while others paused in reflective silence. Sarah could feel the shift, a crack forming in the impenetrable walls of resentment that tended to imprison their small community. Suddenly, her grandmother stepped forward, face resolute, yet softened by vulnerability. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the strength she wore like armor. "I'm not an easy person to forgive." "I know," Sarah replied, her heart racing as she matched her grandmother's gaze. "But life is too short to hold on to anger. The crowd visibly gauged the gravity of this moment. Breaths held like secret oaths traded in trust. I still remember your father as a boy, her grandmother continued, stepping closer. He had dreams, but this town always put him down. He lost himself trying to please others. Our past is heavy, dear, but it doesn't have to define our future. Sarah felt the fragility between them, a bridge forming amid the chaotic past. Could this be happening? In the midst of vulnerability, her grandmother offered a glimmer of hope that rebounded through the crowd. What if we told our stories together? Sarah proposed, excitement bubbling in her chest. What if, instead of tearing each other down, we helped each other grow? We could have monthly gatherings, a community of voices where everyone matters. The affirmative murmurs swelled around them, and Sarah knew she stood on the brink of change not just for herself, but for everyone. This collective experience could be a new beginning, a chance to reshape the town's story. But just as the crowd began to embrace her idea, the shrill sound of a phone ringing cut through the air, startling everyone. Sarah looked down to see a message flashing on her screen. It was from a number she didn't recognize, but the preview startled her. We need to talk about your father. There's something you don't know. Her heart jumped into her throat. What could that possibly mean? As the crowd buzzed with newfound energy, confusion and curiosity flickered in her mind. What secrets still lay hidden, waiting to be revealed? Sarah's breath hitched. Her fingers trembled as she swiped the message, revealing more than just words. It felt like an intrusion into her carefully reconstructed world. The noise of the crowd faded into a distant hum, their excited discussions merging into white noise as she focused on the screen. What's wrong, Mommy? Lily's voice cut through her thoughts, vibrant and innocent. She turned to her daughter, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Nothing, sweetheart. Just a message. Lily's brow furrowed with concern, but she didn't press further. Instead, she squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, as if assuring her that everything would be okay, even when Sarah felt the questions swirling in her mind crash against one another like waves. The crowd was still abuzz. The energy crackled as more people began to emerge, stepping out from their nostalgic thoughts, seeking hope and healing from the past. But for Sarah, the prospect of a brighter future now felt shadowed by the weight of a hidden truth. Can you give me just a moment? Sarah said softly to Lily, who nodded, though her eyes still reflected worry. As Sarah made her way away from the crowd, her pulse raced. She found a quiet spot near the edge of the gathering, where the sound of laughter and chatter faded slightly. Her hands trembled as she typed a response. Who is this? The words seemed to leap off her fingers, urgent and heavy all at once. Almost immediately came the reply. It's Ben. We need to talk about your father. I know he didn't want you to find out this way, but there's no easy way to say this. Her heart sank. Ben was her father's best friend, the one constant in her father's life who had remained even after Sarah had lost him. What do you mean? She typed back. As she waited for a response, she glanced back at the crowd. Here was her family, her community ready to embrace the idea of change, yet she felt pulled in two directions. Her grandmother stood in the midst of it all, a look of conflicted pride and concern written across her face. Your father wasn't who you think he was, Ben finally wrote. He made choices that have affected you more than you'll ever know. Confusion clouded her thoughts, mixing with a flicker of anger. Did this mean her childhood had been a lie? How could a man dedicated to storytelling, to sharing the weight of words, hide something so monumental from her? Tears pricked at her eyes, but she blinked them back. Gathering her resolve, she took a deep breath and typed. What do you mean, Ben? The seconds felt like hours as she waited for his response. She could hear the moments of laughter from the crowd rolling like a tide, something so innocent and blissful while she stood here teetering on the brink of another emotional upheaval. Meet me at the old diner tomorrow at noon, he replied. We need to talk about your father's past. The finality of his message echoed in her ears. The din of the crowd surged around her again, laughter mixing with the scent of barbecue drifting through the air. But inside her, anxiety was merging into a storm of uncertainty. Lily came running back, her little face glowing with excitement. Mommy, let us get back. They want to hear your story. The pressure of it all crushed her as she tried to smile. Sure, honey. Just give me a minute. Are you okay? Lily asked, tilting her head with the kind of wisdom only children possess. I will be, Sarah assured her, though she wasn't sure if she believed it. As Sarah returned to the crowd, the laughter wrapped around her like a warm embrace. Yet, shadows loomed ahead. The truth awaited her in the diner. What hidden pieces of her father's life could rewrite everything she thought she knew? The thoughts swirled in her mind, knotting her stomach. With every step back toward the laughter, she felt the weight of unturned stones pressing down. What secrets would tomorrow bring? The next day dawned with an eerie calm. Sarah woke up to the soft light filtering through the curtains, but it felt as if the sun was trying to pierce a heavy fog that clung to her thoughts. Lily was already up, humming a little tune as she played with her dolls, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing in her mother's heart. Are you ready for our story time today, Mommy? Lily called out, her voice sweet as honey. Sarah wanted desperately to maintain that reality, where the biggest concern was what fairy tale they would tell next, but the weight of Ben's message pressed relentlessly against her chest. Just a few more minutes, sweetheart, she replied, her voice softer than she intended. As she prepared herself, each gesture felt mechanical, the hairbrush sliding through her hair, the coffee brewing with an almost sarcastic aroma of comfort that did nothing to calm the tempest inside. Sarah's thoughts spun wildly. What could Ben possibly tell her that would alter her perception of her father so deeply? The clock ticked loudly, its hands mocking the minutes dragging by in slow motion. Finally, it was time to leave. The drive to the diner felt endless, each second stretching out with a heavy weight. She felt like she was headed to a trial, not a conversation. When she arrived, the familiar neon sign buzzed with a faded glow, and her heart sank. The diner's warmth, with its nostalgic decor and the smell of frying bacon, usually brought back comforting memories, but today it felt foreign. As she stepped inside, the jingle of the bell overhead announced her presence. Ben was already there, sitting in a booth at the far corner, his head bent over a cup of coffee. She noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed on the table. Taking a deep breath, Sarah approached. Ben, she said, her voice breaking slightly. He looked up, eyes heavy with unspoken truths. Sarah, thank you for coming. She slid into the booth opposite him, feeling a sense of foreboding settle in her stomach. What did you mean yesterday? About my father? Your father was a complex man, Ben began, his voice grave. He hid things from you, things he thought would protect you. Protect me from what? Sarah pressed, her emotions rising. The weight of the unknown felt heavy, like a storm cloud ready to burst. Ben cleared his throat, eyes looking far away, as if the memories were too painful to revisit. He was involved in something that changed lives, people's lives, and yours too. There were choices he made that could have put you in danger, and he thought if you didn't know, you'd be safer. Her breath stuttered. Danger? How? What do you mean? The questions poured out like rain, beating against her heart. Sarah, he was involved in a life that included secrets, a world of storytelling that often blurred the lines between reality and fiction. There were debts, he paused, swallowing hard. Things that escape a simple explanation. But it all led to choices that needed to be made that weighed on him profoundly. As she listened, a mix of confusion and rage bubbled within her. This wasn't just about her father now. It was about her identity, her childhood painted over with secrets. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Her voice wobbled, raw and exposed. I thought I could protect you from what was buried, he replied softly. I underestimated how much you needed to know, how much you deserved to know the truth about your father. The silence that followed was heavy, shrouded in unshed tears and unspoken pain. As the waitress approached to refill their coffee, Sarah couldn't tear her gaze away from Ben's face, searching for answers in the shadow of his eyes. Will I ever understand who he really was? She whispered, feeling as though the very ground under her was shifting, ready to swallow her whole. Ben leaned forward, his expression softening. I hope so, but it may take time. Just know your father loved you fiercely. Everything he did for you. She felt a crack form in her heart, a fissure that could let light in, but it also scared her. Could she accept this new version of her father? Could she reconcile the father she cherished with the stranger Ben described? As their conversation unfolded, Sarah sensed it would lead her down a path of truth and perhaps ruin. Yet, she knew one thing. She had to learn, no matter how painful. What if the pieces of her father's past held answers that could redefine her pain into purpose? Could unraveling this mystery finally set her free? Are you ready for what lies ahead? Ben asked, the earnestness in his voice tugging at her heart. With a hesitance that felt electric in the air, Sarah nodded, a mixture of fear and determination sparking in her chest. But deep down, she asked herself, was she ready to learn the darkest secrets of the man she revered? The journey was just beginning. The next day, Sarah felt the weight of anticipation settle on her shoulders like a thick blanket. She woke up to the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the room in a warm golden hue. But the warmth didn't reach her heart, which felt colder than ever. Lily was happily crafting a paper crown, unknowingly sewing together her own little kingdom of innocence. Each snip of the scissors echoed in the silence, and Sarah couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that her perfect little world was about to unravel. "Mommy, look!" Lily beamed, holding up the crown triumphantly, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Now I'm a princess." Sarah managed to smile, but her mind was already drifting toward her meeting with Ben. She had spent the night tossing and turning, countless questions racing through her mind. What would she discover today? And why did knowing the truth feel like stepping into a darkened room while holding only an unlit candle? As she drove to the diner, the streets blurred past her, familiar sights distorted by her racing thoughts. Each stop sign took on a heavier significance. She was just about to find out how deep the rabbit hole went. When she pushed through the diner doors, the comforting bell chimed again, but the sound felt hollow. The scent of coffee and pancakes sent her stomach churning rather than warming. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on Ben, already seated in their usual booth. He looked up as she approached, and there was a vulnerability in his gaze that made her pause. There was so much confusion in him, too. She slid into the booth, heart pounding, bracing for revelations. "Hey, Ben," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his expression earnest. It hit her then that he knew the depth of what lay ahead. "I'm as ready as I'll ever be," she replied, though doubt twisted in her gut. Ben leaned closer, as though the weight of unspoken secrets demanded intimacy. "I know this will change how you feel about your father. There's no easy way to share this. Just tell me," Sarah urged, her pulse quickening. "Your father," he hesitated, taking a deep breath. "Your father was involved in a network. It wasn't just about storytelling. It was about creating and sometimes destroying lives. There were people who depended on him, yes, but there were also those who were hurt because of decisions he made. It caused ripples that eventually reached you." Sarah felt her breath hitch in her throat. "What are you saying? That he hurt people?" Ben nodded slowly. "I wish it wasn't true. He thought he was being protective, but he was also making choices that cast long shadows. Shadows that have been looming over me my entire life," Sarah whispered, anger and heartbreak mixing within her. "Why didn't he ever tell me? Why keep this from me?" Ben's eyes filled with remorse. "Because he hoped you could grow up free from that burden. Ignorance was his shield for you. But it's not a shield, is it? It's a prison." Her heart ached. Was her entire childhood wrapped in a lie? What pain had he kept from her? What if he thought he was doing right? She challenged, desperation creeping into her voice. He believed it, but sometimes doing what we think is best leads to the worst outcomes. Tears pooled in her eyes. "And now I'm left with these choices? With this knowledge?" Ben reached across the table, his hand hovering over hers, but not daring to touch. "You need to decide how to move forward. Your father made choices that you'll have to make sense of. It's not easy, but you can choose how this shapes you." The thought pressed against her chest. Could she transform the hurt and anger into something stronger? Something redemptive? She felt the weight of not just her questions, but her future resting on her shoulders. It all came down to how she perceived her father moving forward, and whether she could forgive a man who loved her in one way and failed her in another. "Will knowing the truth really set me free?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We can only learn and grow from pain, Sarah, but it's your journey forward that will matter most." An idea began to form in her mind. What if uncovering her father's past could offer a path, not just to understanding, but to healing? What legacy would she want to build from these revelations? In that moment, the doors signaling newcomers swung open, and the bell jingled, pulling Sarah from her thoughts. A rushing wave of familiarity washed over her as she caught sight of someone she hadn't seen in years. Her heart plummeted as she recognized who it was. Would this stranger hold pieces of the puzzle she desperately needed? "Mom," Sarah murmured, disbelief flooding her voice. And before she could grasp the implications, her mother stepped into the space of her past, ready or not. Sarah's heart raced. The familiar face, once a comforting presence in her childhood, now felt like a ghost from a time she had tried to forget. Her mother stood there, slightly older but unmistakably the same. It had been years since she vanished without a trace, leaving nothing but questions and heartache behind. "Mom," Sarah whispered, as if saying the word might shatter the fragile moment. Lily, still sitting at the table with her paper crown, looked up with confusion. "Who asked that, Mommy?" "Lily, this is your grandmother," Sarah replied, her voice trembling between surprise and a slight flutter of hope. Her mother took a tentative step closer, her eyes filling with emotion. "Sarah," she said softly, almost pleading, "I know it's been a long time, and I didn't come back just to disrupt your life. I had my reasons." How could she justify leaving them behind? A surge of anger mixed with the longing for answers bubbled inside Sarah. "You mean reasons for disappearing? Reasons for leaving me and Lily? You owe me an explanation for all that." "Please," her mother raised her hands, as if trying to calm the storm brewing between them. "Can we just sit down and talk?" Against her better judgment, Sarah nodded. She motioned for her mother to join them in the booth, but the tension was almost tangible. Ben observed quietly, sensing the electric atmosphere as Sarah's mother slipped into the seat beside her. "Lily, sweetie," Sarah said, forcing a smile, "can you go find some chocolate milk?" The little girl nodded, oblivious to the weighty air, and scampered off to the counter. Sarah's heart sank as she turned back toward her mother. "What do you want?" she blurted out, the harshness in her voice echoing her unresolved pain. "I want to explain everything," her mother began, pain etching her features. "Your father thought he was protecting you from the truth, and I thought if I left, the truth would stay buried. I was wrong, so wrong." Sarah felt a chill creeping up her spine. What more could you possibly say that would justify leaving me in a world full of shadows? "You left us unprotected. You left me alone. I thought I was doing what was best for you," her mother insisted, her voice shaky. "I wanted to shield you from the consequences of your father's choices." As her mother spoke, Sarah was flooded with memories, years of uncertainty, of wondering why her family had splintered into pieces. She clenched her fists, the anger raging within her turning into something sharper. "And that is supposed to make it okay? Listen to me." Her mother's voice lowered, desperation spilling out. "I didn't know how to handle it. Your father was drawn into something darker. I was scared. I thought if I stayed, it would destroy us. I didn't want to put you in danger, so I ran." The words hung between them, heavy and haunting. Could she forgive a woman who had chosen fear over family? Suddenly, Sarah felt like the weight of the past was crushing her. "Why now?" Sarah pressed. "Why did you come back after all this time?" "Because I heard your father was ill," her mother said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I didn't want to face it, but I had to know to see if there was any chance left for us." Her heart raced, but not with relief, rather with the sharp pang of betrayal. "And now you think you can just walk in and fix everything? The years I've spent putting the pieces of my life together, does that mean nothing?" As if the universe wanted to intervene, the front door swung open once more, and the bell jingled again. Sarah turned her head, her heart skipping a beat. Who else was coming into this tangled web of revelations? Each revelation left her reeling, and the questions clouding her mind just multiplied. She looked back at her mother, a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters, unsure if it would save her or drag her under. "Sarah," her mother whispered, reaching out as if to bridge the chasm between them. But Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Could she truly let go of her anger? Would this moment of connection help pull her family back together, or would it just add another layer of pain to her already fractured life? "Mom," she started, feeling the weight of all her emotions, "I don't know if I can do this." As she spoke, the weight on her heart pressed harder, and the looming fear of the future knocked against her thoughts. Would discovering the truth of her father lead her to forgiveness, or simply back into the darkness she had tried to escape? In that instant, with emotions running high and the past crashing in like a wave, Sarah felt the tug of her family's history, a history she was now being asked to confront. Would she find the strength to face it, or would she turn away, once more losing the chance to heal? And just as those questions swirled inside her, a figure stepped into the diner who could change everything yet again. The door swung open, and in walked a tall figure, casting a long shadow across the dimly lit diner. Sarah's heart almost stopped as she recognized him instantly. It was Jacob, her childhood friend, the one who had always brightened her days, who had been there through her toughest times, the one who had known her father before everything fell apart. Jacob? Sarah's voice trembled, raw and full of surprise. The warmth of their childhood friendship crashed back into her, even as the looming conflict with her mother persisted like an unwelcome guest. He looked up, confusion flitting across his face before giving way to relief. Sarah, wow, it's been so long. He stepped forward, glancing between Sarah and her mother. What is going on? Not much, just unraveling years of family history, Sarah said, the bitterness creeping back in. She was grateful for Jacob's presence, but the weight of unresolved feelings threatened to drown her. Oh, Jacob said, his brow furrowing. I have to say, I didn't expect to see you both here like this. Is everything all right? Not exactly, Sarah sighed, raking a hand through her hair. My mother just waltzed back into my life after years saying she has reasons for leaving. A moment of silence. Jacob's gaze shifted towards Sarah's mother. He reached out and squeezed Sarah's shoulder gently. It's good to see you, though, Sarah. We've missed you back home. Home. The word echoed in her heart, exposing a raw nerve. So much had changed, yet here was Jacob, a thread connecting her to a life she had tried to forget. She fought back tears, trying to focus, but the emotions were like a tide, threatening to wash her away. I could never forget you, her mother interjected, her voice quivering as she looked at her daughter as childhood friend. That's why I've come back. To finally put things right for both of you. Right? Sarah laughed bitterly. What part of heartbreak and abandonment sounds like right to you? Sarah, please, her mother pleaded, her eyes shimmering with desperation. You have to understand, I was scared for you both. I've spent years thinking about how to protect you. Lily returned with a cup of chocolate milk, her face lighting up as she saw Jacob. Uncle Jacob, she exclaimed, rushing into his arms. Wow, look at you, princess, Jacob said, lifting her up in a warm embrace, showcasing that family connection that had always existed. He pulled back, his eyes sparkling. You've become quite the young lady. This moment of joy seemed to pierce through the heavy atmosphere. Sarah couldn't help but smile. But her smile faded when she caught her mother's gaze. Her eyes were full of regret. Jacob placed Lily back down and turned to Sarah. What happened? You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to know, Sarah said, the honesty spilling out. You deserve to know. My mother disappeared, and I've fought through it alone for so long. I can't imagine how hard that's been, Jacob said quietly. But whatever has happened, you've survived. You're strong. Strength has never fixed brokenness, Sarah replied, suddenly feeling exposed. She realized she was standing in front of them, her mother and Jacob, both pieces of her history that were now colliding in a painful way. I know I can't make up for the past, her mother said, tears brimming again, but I want to be part of your lives again. Together, we can heal. Can we? Sarah's voice cracked, a mixture of hope and skepticism swirling together. Can we really go back to what was? With just words? Just then, the bell above the door jingled against the flow of the moment, and another familiar face stepped into the diner. Sarah's breath hitched again. Could this new arrival bring more chaos? Or could they be yet another missing piece of her fractured family puzzle? The diner's door swung again, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It was Mia, her best friend from high school, her presence urgent yet comforting. The vibrant girl from their youth had somehow become a striking woman, her auburn hair framing a familiar, warm smile that now blared like a siren against Sarah's ocean of uncertainty. Mia? Sarah gasped, her mind racing back to every sleepover and every secret shared over late-night snacks. What are you doing here? Mia's blue eyes twinkled as she stepped closer, oblivious to the tension hanging thick in the air. I was passing by and decided to pop in. I heard you were back in town. And, oh my God, is that Jacob? She turned her gaze to him, her surprise blossoming into joy. Yeah, it's me. It's been too long, Jacob replied, stepping away from Sarah's side to welcome Mia with a hug that spoke of years forgotten. They laughed, the sound brightening the dismal atmosphere, and for a moment, Sarah felt hope flickering to life again. But that flicker dimmed as Mia's eyes drifted to Sarah's mother. You. she started, her voice faltering. You're here? A lot has changed, Mia, Sarah said, feeling the need to shield her friend from the weight of their shared history. Don't worry. Mia looked between them, piecing together the fragments of what was happening. I can see that. Just thought we were all past this, you know. Guess we're not, Sarah muttered, feeling like they stood on a cliff, inching closer to a long-forgotten chasm. I came back to make things right, Sarah's mother interjected, her tone trembling. To bring us all together again. Mia's expression hardened slightly, a protective instinct flashing in her eyes. You can't just waltz back into Sarah's life like nothing happened. You hurt her. Jacob stepped in, trying to ease the sudden weight of hostility. Let us not turn this into a fight, okay? Sarah needs friendship right now, not division. Mia nodded slowly, looking back at Sarah. You okay? Kind of, Sarah replied, her voice steadying. I'm still processing everything. In that moment, the memories of laughter with Mia slipped away, replaced by a haunting desperation. The bonds of friendship that once seemed unbreakable were now laced with complexities and complications. She felt like she was standing at a crossroads, each path darker and more twisted than the last. Together we can heal, her mother repeated, and somehow the words felt both profound and hollow. How? Sarah whispered, her heart aching. You left, Mom. You chose to leave. How do we just heal? Jacob stepped forward. You talk. You open up. You let the past breathe instead of suffocating it. Maybe it starts here. With all of us. Mia turned to Sarah, her hand gently squeezing her arm. You deserve to be heard. We all do. Sarah's walls began to crack, but just as she was about to respond, Lily tugged at her sleeve, her chocolate milk forgotten. Mommy, what does heal mean? Can we paint something happy? The innocence in her voice pierced through the suffocating tension, evoking a tender warmth. Sure, sweetheart, Sarah said, kneeling to meet Lily's eyes. We can paint together. As they stood together, it felt like the pieces of a shattered puzzle were beginning to align, even if the picture was still a mess. The laughter of the diner returned, warming the chilly atmosphere. Yet just then, the bell jingled again, and the door swung wide, revealing an unexpected figure. The air shifted, and Sarah felt every gaze turn toward the new arrival, each breath hitching in uncertainty. What news did this stranger bring? Would it turn out to be another harsh reality, or perhaps a surprising twist in their quest for healing? The figure stepping into the diner was tall, with a weathered face that held stories etched into creases and lines. It was Ben, the man Sarah had met just days before, but there was something different about him now. The solemnity in his eyes was mixed with an urgency that made the atmosphere crackle with tension. Sarah, I'm glad I caught you, he said, moving quickly through the crowd of familiar faces. I came to tell you something important, something I should have said earlier. Everyone fell silent, curious, the comfort of laughter now replaced by suspense. Is this about your father's past? Mia asked, her protective stance firmly in place, as if ready to shield Sarah from any more hurt. Ben nodded, the weight of the moment palpable. Yes, but it also involves your mother, Sarah. There's a connection here that you all need to understand. Connection? Sarah echoed, her breath held. Her heart felt like it was pounding in sync with the ticking clock on the wall, each tick amplifying her anxiety. Her mother's expression shifted, a strange mix of fear and anticipation. What do you mean, Ben? Your father didn't just leave behind darkness. He left behind a path meant to be uncovered. He believed, and I believe too, that healing begins with confronting the truth together. And that truth links us all. His words hung in the air, heavy with significance, sparking flickers of hope in Sarah. Ben took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts. You see, Sarah, your father had been working on a project while he was alive. It started as a story, but it evolved into a mission to right the wrongs he committed in his past. He collaborated with several veterans, aiming to provide a community of care and support. But there were obstacles, and when he tried to extricate himself, it cost him a great deal. Her mother frowned, confusion clouding her features. What do you mean? This wasn't just a conversation about her father's past anymore. It was a revelation that could reshape their understanding of him. While working on that mission, your father made deals he shouldn't have. They put his family in danger, but he wanted to fix it all, and he believed in a future where his family could be together, away from the shadows he had cast. The tension thickened, and Sarah could feel her heart racing. And where does this leave us? I'm here to say that your father began something, a legacy aimed at helping those affected by the struggles of war, to turn pain into purpose. It won't erase what has happened, but it could be a way forward. Her heart jolted at the thought. Could she embrace a mission that her father intended to create? Could it truly allow them to heal? Ben shifted, the light from the window reflecting off his earnest face. I believe he would want you all to take part, to hear the stories, to share the burdens, and in doing so, write a new narrative. It could be how you find closure and start anew. Every eye in the diner turned towards Sarah, and she felt the weight of their expectations settle over her like a warm blanket and a heavy shroud all at once. What do you say? Ben asked, his voice steady even amidst the tremors of uncertainty. Sarah's breathing slowed as she glanced at Lily, who was squeezing Jacob's hand tightly, and then to her mother, whose eyes were shimmering with hope. In that moment, she felt a shift within herself, a surge of belief that maybe this was her chance. Together? She said, her heart igniting with newfound courage. Yes, Ben affirmed, smiling encouragingly. Before she could say another word, her mother reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. Sarah, I want to be part of this too. I don't want to hide anymore. Not from you, not from the truth. Mia stepped in, taking Sarah's other hand. Just think of it this way. Maybe this is our path to redefine who we are, not just for ourselves, but for all those like us. Jacob nodded, ever supportive. We've got this, he said, his voice a soothing assurance amid the turmoil. You're not alone. A warmth spread through Sarah's heart, and she felt tears of joy prick at her eyes. For the first time in what felt like forever, she could see the fragments of her family, lost pieces that were beginning to align. In that moment, she knew that the past, however painful, didn't have to dictate their future. They could rebuild, reclaim, and redefine their family narrative together. She looked back at Ben, her resolve clear in her voice. We'll do it. We'll honor my father's legacy, and in doing so, we'll heal. Together, her mother echoed, finally truly united in their mission. And just like that, forged through clarity and confrontation, the seeds of hope were sown, awaiting a chance to flourish amid their shared stories and woven experiences. They weren't just gathering to remember. They were here to choose love, resilience, and family. As laughter wrapped gently around them again, Sarah felt something shift. She was no longer just the daughter of a lost father. She was part of a community, and that community was ready to stand tall as they faced the future together. Now was the moment to embrace life in full color, planting seeds of forgiveness and building a legacy that would celebrate their journey. It was time to step forward. And as the bell jingled above the door, signaling yet more arrivals, Sarah felt ready to face whatever came next. And you, my friend, this is the time for you to step up too. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending you need to share. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait, not even one more second.